Peace and harmony, family. Welcome back to a Rose for You podcast. It has been an absolute minute, but I'm so glad to be humbly back, honestly. And just a friendly reminder, this is a space for softness, for sacred truth, for quiet knowing. I'm Octavia, also known as Rose. And this podcast is an offering for every woman learning how to trust herself again. So today's episode is called The Humbleness of Intuition versus Ego. Yeah, let's let that sink in. And it's one that I had to live before I could even speak on it. And to be honest, it's something that I had to experience today. For a while, I've been telling myself, I need to trust my intuition more. I need to trust my intuition better. I want to deepen my intuition. I've been telling myself so many different things when it comes to my intuition, even things as far as something so small. Like, for example, I make my daughter's lunch for school and I'll be doing something in the morning to where I'm like, okay, I know I need to pack this and that, and then I'll just, take it to her during her lunchtime, blah blah blah. But then I don't necessarily do it just then. And then later on, my daughter will need something or she needs something extra. And the thought comes to my mind is, oh man, I knew I should have put that extra blueberry in there. I knew I should have put that extra fork in there or that extra whatever in there. Just extra underwear in there. I don't know. But it's moments like that that should be taken as something more sacred. As a woman, trusting that intuition. A lot of women are out here trying to figure out how can I trust my intuition more? How can I do this? How can I do that? How can I deepen my relationship with myself? Studying myself is what it takes. Studying self. And that can also be learned through body sensation. For example, my intuition comes from my womb space. Like, absolutely. It'll give like a kind of like a grip, you know, or a contraction in my womb space. It's not anything that's gonna, be hurting me, like gonna stop me in my tracks, but it's kind of gonna be like a oh, like a type of feeling. So, I also wanted to share my experience today, and this is an exercise that you can find in my 7-day guide for, trusting your intuition, deepening your intuition. And this is one of the exercises in my mini guide. So today I got into an accident. Like someone literally hit and run on a highway. So this exercise is what was the most impactful moment of my day? And I wrote my accident. Honestly, I've never been in an accident. Well, I've been in one accident before, um, like years ago. But yeah, I've never really been in an accident before. And then especially not for someone to just hit me on the highway and keep driving. Like, that's crazy. And so after I put my accident, the question is posed of, based on my experience, did I make that decision based off intuition or ego? And I want to pause right there because, again, my intuition was speaking so loud. It was speaking so loud earlier that day. I remember bright and early, I do my meditation. And in my meditation, I remember telling myself, today, slow down. Don't move fast. Don't overwork myself. Don't do any of those things. That's literally what I remember telling myself in my meditation earlier. And I was practicing the breath work, and I was just feeling very zenful afterwards, to the point where I was taking my time getting myself dressed. I even changed my wardrobe. I was gonna put on, some leggings and a shirt or whatever and call it a day. But in a moment of like that, I actually looked in the mirror and I was like, no, I want something a little more ladylike. Looks like I actually care about myself today. And um I ended up changing into this really pretty yellow jumper. Now I got to figure out how to get the stains out of, because wow, I had to fix a whole tire, but we're going to get into that. And so, um, earlier that day, I was working, I was doing lifts, and um, I remember I took a little break around 12, and I was going to my favorite restaurant in my hometown. It's called Country's Life, and they serve like vegan food, and it's kind of, well, it's really good in my opinion for vegan food. And and so I was taking my time reading my book. Identity Switch by April Mason. It is a really good book if you really want to have a identity switch and do that inner child healing. It's a really good book so far. But anywho, um I'm just taking my time eating. I'm filling my stomach as I eat every drop of collard greens, rice, and black eyed peas. And I gotta paint this picture so you understand how intentional I was being for my day and practicing intuition. And after that, I go use the ladies' room, wash my hands, all that good stuff, put the rest of my remaining food in the car, all that. And I remember getting in the car, and when you do Lyft, especially where I'm at, and you get a ride to go to Atlanta, they pay pretty big for that. And so, just a transparent moment, um, I had been out of commission with my car for about almost almost a week and a half, almost 14 days. Um, and so that put me in a hole, right? And in my mind, I was trying, like, in my mind, which is ego, I'm thinking, okay, I hope I get a ride to Atlanta. But my body, intuitively, I didn't want to do that. I really didn't want to do that. And so I ended up getting a ride, my first ride back on doing the Lyft app, to start my afternoon little shift and whatnot. My first ride is to Atlanta. And I'm like, okay, bet. Like, okay, spirit, you looking out for me. Like, wait. And so, before I even accept the ride, I was a little hesitant. And this is me realizing this after all things was said and done. And I remember I was on my phone. I don't know what I was looking at. I can't remember what I was looking at. But all I know is I seen a ride come down. I was like, ooh, look at that. Blessing me. Like, come on. But even driving prior to that day, I ignored all the signs. Even when I was coming from Alabama to Georgia, um, the traffic was crazy, which is never traffic where I am. It's never traffic. Like, and if it is traffic, it barely lasts 5 minutes. Okay. I got like it's a small city, but it's supposed to be the second largest city in Georgia, but I don't make the rules. And so I seen traffic. I'm like, why is there so much traffic today? And I'm just riding. Like, I'm not speeding. I'm not driving crazy. I'm not having no anger issues. I'm just like, okay, traffic here. And then I go another route and it's traffic there. Unusual spaces to where there is traffic. And if you know how small this city is, but it's still widespread. Like, we got one tall building, but it's still widespread. But we don't really have traffic like that. And so I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, obviously, this is just a sign for me needing to move slow. And I took that. And it was even to the point where I was taking rides and I was driving the speed limit, like slow, if not. But yeah. And so back to based on my experience, did I make that decision based on intuition or ego? I made this decision based on ego versus intuition, trust, you know, because I feel like to trust, you must have intuition, you must trust your intuition. So to me, trust and intuition is a mirror, it's the same thing, right? So, in order for us to understand our experience, we first have to understand what trust is. We first have to understand what ego is. When we think about trust, we think about patience, gentle, restful, transparency, allowing things to happen without control, boundaries, receivable, and even uncomfortable. How many times, girl, how many times can you think about a situation to where it was uncomfortable, but you needed to trust the process? And your spirit, your own intuition was telling you, girl, relax. It's gonna pan out how it needs to. Yeah, trust, intuition can be uncomfortable. Deeply felt. Your intuition for a lot of women starts from this. It's like an inner contraction, an inner pull, just like tugging, kind of like tug and war, right? Well, that inner feeling is that tug, like that tug on your womb, and you feel it, but we don't really know how to acknowledge it, right? That's why womb healing is so important, so you can really trust and understand what your intuition, what your womb is telling you. Everything as a woman lies in our womb because it is the very essence that makes us a natural born woman in the first place, right? Trust, intuition reveals self in layers, is layered. There's always what I'm realizing in my own journey is it's like things that lead up to it, to the bigger picture, to the bigger purpose, to the bigger understanding, understanding, overstanding. But it just takes patience, right? Ego, controlling, fearful, trickster energy. And I say trickster energy because I believe it's kind of like similar to trickster energy, right? Because sometimes in this instance, for example, all day I focused on being sinful, being just in a space of restfulness, just being, or not even restfulness, but just patience, being gentle with myself. And then it's like at some point, I started operating in this space of trying to control um, my situation by thinking about all of what I experienced, especially when I was in the hole. That experience came to my mind. And instead of me sitting on that and using that as a catalyst to continue to move with grace and understanding and trust in my intuition, I used it in a way of um, operating from a space of lack. I was I came up with the mindset of hustling to fix the problem. And honestly, the problem is deeply rooted. And ego is is the mind. Sometimes when we're trying to figure out, I realize, and this is just my opinion and my personal experience, intuition is your womb pulling tug of war, telling you like, hey, it's like a nudge, like, hey girl, like, mm. And ego is so quick. Like you don't have a space or time um to feel, to move slow before you act on something. It's impulsive, it's fast, you know. It's quick to jump to conclusions. So it's comfort as well. And like I was saying, I think it's a trickster energy because intuitively we can know that what we're doing right now is probably something we shouldn't be doing. But then the mind will sit here and tell you, oh no, it has to get done. It has to get done. Because if it doesn't, then this will happen. You'll start feeling it at the top, like literally where your third eye sits, like you'll start to feel it there. And it kind of puts your spirit back into that comfortability of what your nervous system is used to versus you actually sitting with self and being uncomfortable and learning to be patient with yourself and your progress, right? So ego is fast and impulsive. Trust, intuition reveals self in layers. It's gentle, it's graceful. So moving to reflection, honest reflections on both intuition, trust, and reflection, honest reflection on ego. So, my reflection of, or my honest reflection of the intuition that I was experiencing before my accident was during my meditation, I was told to take it easy today. I was slow today. I even hesitated from accepting the ride, and I felt deeply to stay home. Like, some days I'd be like, okay, I need to go to Atlanta, I need to work. But I'm learning that when I feel like I need to stay home, stay closer in the city, I should honor that. And I felt that before this incident, but sometimes I would listen and sometimes I won't. But honest reflection for ego, mindset, I needed the money, operated from a space of lack. Once granted the opportunity, I took it and thought that's what I wanted. So I chose ego, even though I was feeling intuition all day. So that lets me know that I still was looking for some comfortability. That lets me know I still was not trusting my intuition fully like I should have. And so that caused me to experience something that made me realize, for one, how much of what I want to accomplish for myself, whether that's intangible or tangible, how much of that I really had not um, paid more attention to or necessarily done the work. And I'm really grateful for my accident because it made me realize that I can do better in the area of trusting my intuition. And it makes me want to um, really pull myself more so together internally and allow myself to really thrive in that restful state. I've been hustling and running myself ragged for a long time. And it's time for me to be more in my stillness, to be more in my grace. And I'm literally being tested to trust that a lot more. So there is always a distinction, and there's always lessons to be learned out of everything that we experience. So, trust is looking at things as when stillness happens in the physical, then spiritual alterations are happening. If life is a dance, then it's time to change wardrobe for the next performance. Let's let that sink in. Stillness to me is the most humbling experience because we get to see it all, like holistically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, um, physically, financially, all of it. We get to see that, and it's very uncomfortable, especially if you're not used to it. And even if you are used to it, now it's higher heights, right? So that means more active praying, praying multiple times a day, sitting with God, being more appreciative of every little thing, you know? So I am learning so much from just an incident like this and seeing how that can truly transform not only myself, but for other people, you know, taking those little things for granted and also not honoring ourselves, not honoring our intuition. And it's it's kind of like now you have to start asking ourselves, you know, whose voice am I listening to right now? Like, am I listening to my own intuition, or am I just listening to these thoughts that's just running me crazy? Like what part do I need to listen to the most? What part is going to push me forward, you know? So, with that being said, if this resonated, I want to give you something, and that is a sacred 7-day intuition journal that I created to help you build trust with your body again. And you can download it below or in my bio and join my email circle where I share deeper rituals, reflections, and healing tools. So you're not just subscribing, you're stepping into a space where your softness is space. I mean, it's safe, I'm sorry, where your softness is safe. So until next time, this has been a rose for you. I love you.